Hello F1 fans and welcome back to the F1 Masters podcast brought to you by AUBG Daily. As usual, you're with myself Harry, David and Vasco, and in this episode we're going to talk about the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix weekend.
So we're gonna start with practice, and it was the only practice session as it was a sprint weekend. As you know, we love sprint weekends. Yeah, practice, it was pretty straightforward. The only concern was Red Bull not having a lot of pace. Even Max Verstappen, he was P17, although he didn't set a time on the softs. McLaren looked strong. Ferrari actually looked strong as well. They locked out the top 4 positions, but nothing major happened in practice, and yeah, we can just go straight to sprint qualifying.
For sprint qualifying, I think I need to say something, and this is apologies to Sergio Perez, because my hate for him last season is like it was not reasonable at all. Looking at Liam Lawson like being P20 and having a pace of, let's say, 2020 Williams during the races, I think I just owe him an apology. And for the sprint qualifying session, apart from the abysmal performance from Lawson, who was P20, we saw not very exciting pace from Alpine, as they were 16th and 17th, and we saw one Stroll out-qualify Fernando Alonso once again. He was 10th, and Alonso was 11th. And also we saw great pace from Alex Albon, from Yuki Tsunoda. We saw not that great of a sprint quali from McLaren, and especially from Lando Norris, who was 6th. And the weekend was looking promising for Ferrari, as they were first with Hamilton and 4th in the sprint quali standing. But after that, we saw something a bit different. And to mention Max Verstappen, pretty good qualifying session in my opinion. He was relatively close to pole position. Very close times with Lewis Hamilton, and I think that's it. Do you have anything else to mention, like the mistake of Lando Norris, which left him in P6? Is there anything else from the sprint quali?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, the gaps were very, very close, which was quite impressive, made it intense qualifying, but I don't think anyone expected Lewis Hamilton to be on pole. So yeah, it set up an interesting grid for the sprint race, and yeah, now we can move on to the sprint race itself.
Well, Lewis Hamilton was leading comfortably most of it. The main spotlight was on Oscar Piastri, who overtook Max Verstappen and took P2. Otherwise, Lando Norris had quite a poor race, I would say, sprint race. He finished P8 and he had difficulties with overtaking people. And Yuki Tsunoda actually managed to take P6, which was wonderful for RB. They showed great pace.
The teams really struggled with tires in the sprint, and it seemed like it was going to be a 2-stop for the race, which was what was expected. Also, Lando Norris, after his terrible start, he was losing time to Lance Stroll, and I thought that was very concerning for the championship leader, and he eventually salvaged 1 point. But yeah, when it's such a close championship, that's not really a good sign for him, and he needs to clear up his mistakes, because this weekend was full of mistakes for Lando Norris.
And I want to say shout out to Mercedes, even though their car is not the fastest, and I cannot really see their actual pace, and I'm not sure whether they're the 3rd or the 4th fastest car, but I think for the 2 races so far, they have been managing to get as many points as possible. And Kimi Antonelli, George Russell, they were 4th and 7th, and they took great amount of points. And after that, during the race, they were pretty solid. So shout out to Mercedes. If they continue with that pace, even if they don't have the fastest car, I think this season is looking pretty promising. A lot more promising than I thought it would be. And I think we can move to quali session.
Starting off, once again, Liam Lawson P20. We've heard this one. Quite an appalling lap, I would say. Vasco already made comments about it, so I'm not gonna go further. But what was impressive was that both RB cars were in Q3. And I mean, even Isaac Hadjar was ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. It was an incredible quali for him, P7. And he showed his great pace and the potential he has. And it was kind of worrying that Ferrari finished P5 and 6 after the great sprint, especially by Lewis Hamilton. I don't know, maybe they just, from what I understood, they changed their setup a little bit after the sprint and it didn't really work out.
I think it was down to also the other teams changing their setups. We have to take that into consideration. Yeah, it was surprising because Ferrari looked very quick in sprint quali, and one day later I wouldn't say they were nowhere. They were 2-3 tenths off, but yeah, definitely like not at the front where they should be. And Hadjar, very impressive P7, 4 tenths off pole position in that Racing Bulls car. Very, very impressive. And yeah, also one person that was quite disappointing, Carlos Sainz P15, Alex Albon was P10. So I don't know what's going on with Carlos Sainz. I mean, great driver, we know what he's capable of, but his start to his Williams career has been quite underwhelming.
I'm also surprised from this because during the testing it was looking very good for Carlos Sainz, but right now I don't know whether he needs like to better adapt to the car, to better adapt to the team, and in a few races we would see a completely different face from him. But right now from the first 2 races I can safely say that Alex Albon is wiping the floor with him. And also, last thing for the quali session, again, both Alpines, they were out in Q1, and all the promising stats and data that we looked at after the few days of testings, I don't think we saw that with Alpine during last weekend, during this weekend. I don't know if they can improve, but for now, it's also not looking really good for them. And moving on to the race.
I'll start off with the podium positions in DNS recap. So, 3rd place for George Russell, 2nd place for Lando Norris, and 1st place for Oscar Piastri. And the only DNF, once again, was Fernando Alonso, who isn't even classified in the championship yet because he doesn't have a finished race.
And also, we had 3 people disqualified after the race. These were Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, and Pierre Gasly, which... Let's discuss a bit this decision because we had the whole race and there was something strange with Ferrari throughout the whole race. I don't think they managed to get their pace, to get their settings, and to get the car to work alright with the tires. And we especially saw that during the last laps when Max Verstappen managed to overtake Charles Leclerc. Also, to mention the strategy, even though both of their drivers were disqualified, the strategy with Lewis Hamilton, it didn't work out. And I'm not sure what they were thinking. They tried to undercut Verstappen, but I don't think that was a really good idea. It was strange. Again, another strange weekend for Ferrari, if I can put it that way.
I think Lewis Hamilton, he pit obviously for the 2-stop, one of 3 drivers to do that, only him and the 2 RB cars. Yeah, I think that maybe they were also caught off guard of the fact that no one was going to pit a second time. Also, they didn't really have anything to lose because the top 6 had a whole pit stop advantage over the rest of the field. So, I mean, the strategy was nothing spectacular from Ferrari. The pace was quite disappointing because they were really good on their tires in the sprint, and in the race they were terrible. They also had a bit of team orders drama. Lewis Hamilton being told to let through Charles Leclerc, and he didn't want to do it. He really didn't want to, but eventually he didn't. Charles Leclerc, even though he broke his wing after making contact with Hamilton on the first lap, he was really quick actually, even with a broken front wing, and was faster than Lewis throughout the entire race. So yeah, they finished P5, P6 on track where they started. Nothing spectacular, but it was still a good chunk of points to have in the bag. And after the disqualification, that's another huge setback for Ferrari. 2 races in, and they are still behind Williams in the constructors' standings. And I think that speaks for itself.
And another team which didn't have a great race, the expectations were high after qualifying, it's RB. As already mentioned, they didn't do well with strategy. And also, there was like this bizarre moment when Yuki Tsunoda's wing just broke. He was behind Carlos Sainz, and it was probably because of the turbulence, I don't know, but it just like broke and he had to pit, and then he just finished last, and it was quite disappointing from this team.
It was looking really strange. I watched the replay a few times and I still don't know the exact reason, like why this happened. But moving on from poor performances from teams during this weekend to Haas, who actually impressed me, and especially Esteban Ocon. He was very calm during the weekend. He qualified, I think, P11, but managed to progress during the race. The strategy of Haas was great, and he was very stable in that car. And after the disqualifications, he managed to grab P5, which I'm not sure what was the highest position of Haas ever, fourth or fifth?
Fourth. Yeah.
Fourth. Okay, but this is really a historical achievement for Haas. As P5 is on very rare occasions you can talk about Haas being in the top five. And Oli Berman, he was 8. He had an interesting race, and he is an interesting...
fun race.
Yeah, a fun race. And he's an interesting guy because every time that he was overtaking somebody, we just heard on the radio, ciao, 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 which... I'm not sure what he made of that, but if that makes him faster, I am totally not against it. So P8 and P5, 14 points in the back for Haas, which is quite impressive for me. And we can move to another surprise, I think, and this is Lance Stroll, who for a second weekend in a row gets point. And I should probably apologize to him too, because at the beginning of the season, I was like completely sure that he's not going to get more than 3-4 points, whatever I said. And now he's like in top 10 on a regular basis.
Yeah, Lance Stroll, I'm very impressive. I mean, I don't even remember ever being impressed by Lance Stroll, honestly. Like, even when he had like the Racing Point, which was a very good car, he was still being like beaten by Sergio Perez. And, you know, obviously his pole position in Turkey, pretty much the highlight of his career. But yeah, 2 races in a row, he's outperforming Fernando Alonso, one of the greatest drivers of this generation. And I don't really know what's going on with Fernando, but Lance Stroll, I mean, he's locked in. He's driving really well. He hasn't made a single mistake so far this season. I haven't seen him go off the track at all. Obviously, he got lucky with the disqualifications to get into the points. And he was actually the guy that proved to everyone that the one-stop was possible after he did 35 laps on the hard tires. So yeah, Oli Behrman ended up beating him even though they were on the same strategy. But yeah, very impressed with Lance Stroll and finally showing why he is worth being in that car apart from just being the owner's son. So actually a good performance from Lance Stroll.
I think that next we can discuss Williams because there were high expectations for this team. And I mean, Alex Albon finished 7th after the disqualifications. Again, he outperformed Carlos Sainz. As David mentioned, I don't know like why Sainz is worse than Albon, but I guess like it's probably due to adapting to the car and maybe the new environment.
He's not that bad, but clearly the expectations for him were higher. But I really hope, as I mentioned earlier, that this is just a thing for the first few races, and after that when he adapts to the car, when he adapts to the team, and hopefully Alex Albon would maintain his great form too. I think we can see very good things from Williams, like till the end of the season. We just need not only to have the car on point, but both drivers on point. And also, I think you read that statistics that Alex Albon was the first Williams driver to lead a Grand Prix in more than 10 years, I think. Which is also, in a race that was that boring, we can get some interesting statistics, some interesting highlights for the future. I don't know, how long till they lead the race again?
I mean, they're good. They're good. Their car's good. I still think that they will finish P5 in the constructors. And I don't have like incredibly high expectations. They're still a midfield team, but they're managing to rack up the points, which is not what RB managed. And even though RB looked much better, their strategy awful. I mean, Isaac Hadjar, 3 people got disqualified and he still didn't finish in the points. I mean, that's just cruel, honestly. He was having a fantastic weekend. I felt so bad for him. Carlos Sainz honestly did not even deserve that point that he managed to get in the end, but at least it's a point on the board, it's a start for him. Maybe it'll give him some confidence going into the next race. But yeah, Williams look good, continue racking up the points, and I think they'll be solid for the next few races as well.
And before we address the elephant in the room once again, let's talk about the end of the race and Lando Norris.
Yeah, in the last, I think, like 3 laps. So the radio communications began like a little bit before that, but we understood that he had like a long brake pedal and it was worrying. And then afterwards, like the last 2 laps, he just had to step off the gas a little bit earlier and then like brake because it was getting really problematic. And then he lost so much time because George Russell, I think, was around 9 seconds behind him. And then he managed to close the gap and finish only 1 second behind Lando. So if there was one more lap of racing, Lando would have fell down like the order. I don't know where, but it was a worrying problem for McLaren. Yeah.
Yeah, it was also surprising considering the fact that it felt like they were controlling the whole race, and they didn't even let Lando push after Oscar, but yeah, that incident with the brake pedal just came out of nowhere almost, but very lucky to clinch that second place and grab some important points in this championship fight. A bit of a strange situation, but he managed to survive it. McLaren got 1-2. I believe, if I remember the statistic correctly, it was their 50th 1-2 in F1 history. So, yeah, I don't know if it's concerning, like, reliability-wise. I haven't seen McLaren have too many reliability issues over the past few years, but as long as they manage to get it to the finish line, they're fine.
I don't think it is that concerning, and I think right now McLaren are the least concerned team in the paddock. But I know who should be concerned, and this is Liam Lawson. Like, in both qualifying sessions, he was P20, and even though last week when we discussed like the quality of the car, even if you have the worst car, like, you cannot qualify P20 in Red Bull. And I don't know what is happening with Liam. I've told you that I'm not his biggest fan, but I expected something a bit better. And right now, he's looking like having the same pace as both Zaubers. And this is looking concerning. And I think if it is looking concerning for us, it is definitely even more concerning for Helmut Marko, for Christian Horner, and for everybody from the leadership in Red Bull. And that is why rumors started circulating that Yuki Tsunoda may replace Lawson even for the next race. So what do you think about that possibility, and how do you evaluate overall the performance of Lawson so far? Because it's been only 2 races, but it's been rock bottom for him.
I think they should make the swap. I mean, P20 back-to-back qualifying's disaster, and he was P18 in Australia. Terrible. And it's like these are like dry qualifying sessions. It's not even like any tricky conditions. And in the race, okay, you're starting from the pit lane, but the only people he beat that, didn't retire, get disqualified, were the 2 Saubers and Jack Doohan. And Yuki Tsunoda, but Yuki Tsunoda had damage, so I don't really count him. He wasn't even making progress. I mean, Ollie Behrman, like, the amount of progress he made in that Haas, and Liam Lawson couldn't do anything in that Red Bull. They should switch, see if Tsunoda is also struggling, and if Tsunoda also struggles, then we have to put the blame on Red Bull. I mean, this is unacceptable, really, this car. I mean, I get it, Max Verstappen, you want to make the car run him, but you need both cars in the points if you want to have any chance at like the Constructors' Championship. And obviously we know that the prize money is very big at the top of F1, so they need all the points they can get, and if one person can't produce that, I don't know where they go from here. So I think they should try it just to see, what is the actual issue. So I think they should do it, even though maybe it would be too harsh on Liam Lawson, 2 races and to get dropped, but such abysmal performances. I mean, like, not a single positive I can take away from these 2 races.
This early in the season, we haven't seen it, even though we have seen swaps from Red Bull. It's gonna be strange if they do it after 2 races, but it's also necessary because what we've seen is just appalling. And they have to act because it may get too late. They want to rack up points in the Constructors, so I completely understand why they would do it. And the thing is, they'll probably opt for Yuki Tsunoda for now, I guess.
Most probably it would be Yuki Tsunoda. Like, this is their safest option. And I'm wondering, yeah, the car is not the best, but still, Liam is also not performing really well. But if Yuki Tsunoda step into that car and manages to get into Q3 and manages to be in the points, like, right when he's placed in that car, then I don't know what that means for Liam Lawson. Like, that would be very bad for him. And I think Red Bull can wait like 1, 2, or even 3 more races, but if after the 5th race he still haven't gotten out of Q1 and hasn't recorded a single point on the scoreboard, then I think the decision is more than easy to make.
Yeah, I was going to add that Max Verstappen himself said that Liam Lawson would be faster in a RB. Do you guys agree with that? I personally would agree with that. And he was fine in the RB last year against Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, they were pretty evenly matched, I would say, both times that he swapped out Daniel Ricciardo. And I don't really understand why this is happening, but it's happened to all of the drivers before him, and I think it will happen to the drivers after him as well. But it's sad that this team continues ruining careers, it feels like. I hope for better. I hope maybe they'll give him one more chance in Japan, but although this is also Yuki Tsunoda's home race, you have to keep this in mind. Maybe that's extra motivation to put Tsunoda in the car. And I'm also concerned, even if they put Tsunoda in the car, if he also performs really badly and then his career goes down the drain as well.
The other question is he gonna stay at RB, or are they gonna choose, for example, Franco Colapinto or Arvid Lindblad? What do you guys think?
Does Lindblad have a super license?
No,
I don't think
no,
he
it
does.
doesn't.
So,
Yeah, not
so
yet.
most probably
Yeah.
it would be Colapinto
Yeah.
or Daniel Ricciardo, the third time of the cowboy returning. No, joking, of course. I think he would never want to, like, instead of drinking on a yacht in Australia, why deal with Helmut Marko? But still, the thing is that Yuki Tsunoda, even if he goes to RB in Japan, I'm not sure what the end result would be, but if these shambles continue in Red Bull, I won't be surprised, like, after the middle of the season, the Red Bull leadership to be like, okay, let's see which car is the fastest, the RB or the Red Bull, and just switch the pilots randomly around. It seems like the most Red Bull thing ever.
I mean, like, this is like a much bigger problem, but this, I feel like, is a reason why a company should not own two teams in F1. I mean, this is like the same in any league. Imagine, like, in the Premier League, like, two teams being owned by the same owner. It's really not fair, and like they're always just rotating these drivers, and this hinders the drivers really to gain experience and to really get acclimatized to the car, and it really, like, it's so dysfunctional, it feels like, and I really don't like it at all. I would prefer they sold the second team, because they could also focus on one team like that more, and they wouldn't really have to worry about a second team.
I think Helmut Marko and the key figures in Red Bull, they're suffering from Max Verstappen hangover, if I can put it like that. They believe that most of the pilots that they get out of their academy, they get out of F2, would immediately step up and be amazing, which is not the case. We've seen mistakes from the highest rated drivers right now when they were rookies, or even after 1, 2 or 3 seasons. We saw it with Lando Norris, we saw it with Piastri, even with Leclerc, and
With Max Verstappen as well.
yeah, with Max Verstappen as well, but he was pretty adaptable when he had to step up instead of Kvyat. And I just think that nobody is going to match the level of Verstappen, and Red Bull have to deal with that and have to be like, okay, we're not looking for the next Max Verstappen, we're looking for the first, insert a name here.
Well, I think we can also move on to the championship standings. They're quite tight, actually. Lando Norris on 44 points, Verstappen 36, Russell 35, Piastri 34. That's your top 4 covered by 10 points. And in the constructors, we have McLaren leading the way with 78, Mercedes 57, Red Bull 36, and Williams are ahead of Ferrari, although they're both tied on 17 points, and Haas closely behind on 14, and Alpine, the only team yet to score after 2 races. Only 2 races and 9 teams have scored points is actually quite impressive. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on the drivers and constructors, and do you see a championship battle brewing?
Well, Lance Stroll carrying Aston Martin on their back, I mean, 10 out of 10 points. This is a Tao in the corner of Alonso. But for the championship, I think constructors, Mercedes are the only one right now currently looking like they can be some kind of competition against McLaren. And Ferrari, I think Ferrari would improve at some point, but I don't think they would be the team that everybody expected at the beginning of the season. Red Bull, as it stands now, they're going to compete only with Verstappen, so I think they would be safely, I can say that they would be fourth at the end of the season. And for the drivers, I think with a slight improvement from Mercedes, and with slight improvement from Ferrari, with some troubles that we see from time to time from Lando Norris and from Oscar Piastri, we've seen in 2 races that they're not flawless. Last week we saw issue with Piastri, this week we saw not the best race from Lando and some issues with the McLaren. So I think the Drivers' Championship would be super interesting to watch, and I can say that for me, Norris, Verstappen, Russell, Piastri, and even Hamilton and Leclerc still, they can all finish as champions at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree with your analysis, guys. And for constructors, I mean, I think that all teams have a lot of catch up to do to McLaren because, I mean, they're obviously the best. It's going to be tough for the others. So,
I want to add McLaren are the best team, but I feel like people are making it out as if they're like a 2014 Mercedes, like 1 second quicker than everyone. That is not the case. Like, their gap is quite small compared to the rest of the teams. I mean, we saw in qualifying how close the gaps were, and even in the race, like George Russell, he finished 11 seconds behind Piastri across 56 laps, which is like a tenth a lap like difference. Like, these are quite minor gaps, so I wouldn't rush in thinking that McLaren are going to run away with this championship, and especially in the drivers, where I believe both drivers are capable of making mistakes and taking points off of each other. But now we can move on to our highlights of the weekend. I'll actually start, and mine is the fact that the pace was very equal and that the gaps were very close, actually what I was just talking about. But yeah, qualifying very close, and I personally feel like McLaren slightly ahead of everyone else, but Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, equal pace. I can't tell who's second, third, or fourth, and this is what I love about F1. Very unpredictable, and that was overall my highlight of the weekend, and a pretty uneventful weekend, actually.
My highlight, both Ferraris being disqualified, because before the start of the weekend, there were huge expectations again for Ferrari, and even me, I expected some kind of redemption for the first round from them, and it started pretty well with Lewis Hamilton, sprint quali, sprint race, and after that everything just fell apart, and in the end, like, a few nails in the coffin, not only one, was the disqualification after the race. And for me, this is the highlight of the weekend.
for me, the highlight was Lewis Hamilton's sprint win because I did not expect it, honestly. I mean, after the qualifying, I was really hopeful that he would keep it, and he actually did. So it was something nice for me, at least. And my surprise and disappointments, my surprise is obviously Haas, because after Australia, nobody expected them to be so strong and get double points. And my disappointment is Ferrari, because after the sprint race, I had hopes that they would continue this trend and just be somewhere around the top three, but it didn't happen.
For me, Haas, they were surprising. P5, P8, definitely amazing weekend for them. And RB sadly were my disappointment because they had the pace. Tsunoda and Hadjar, they were looking sharp, and in the end, not a great strategy, not a great turn of events for them, and they only got 3 points throughout the whole weekend, which I think they had the pace for what, let's say, Haas did, but they just didn't capitalize on that.
My surprise and disappointment, exactly the same as Vasco's. Haas, great pace, great performance, super impressive considering they were 19th and 20th the whole weekend in Australia. So very glad to see them do so well. And yeah, RB, very good pace, should have finished best of the rest. Terrible strategy. I mean, the fact that they pit both cars again twice, at least if it was only one, like one of them would have got points, but frustrating because they had really good pace and they got no reward for their pace. But I hope that they'll bounce back for the next race. Let's take a look at last week's predictions for China. Harry, you got all 6 rookies to finish the race, and they did. Impressive prediction, but Ferrari did not get on the podium, so still 1 out of 2, not too bad. And Vasco also got 1 out of 2. Piastri win, but he predicted that one Mercedes will not be in the points, but both of them finished fairly comfortably in the points. And my predictions, I had Russell winning. He finished on the podium, but did not get the win. And Hadjar points. Painful that he didn't finish in the points, even though he deserved it. But yeah, let's move on to the predictions for Japan.
I would start with just a turn of the current scenery in F1, and that is of McLaren dominance. I don't think we would see that in Japan. I think that there would be no pole position for McLaren, and this is my first prediction. And if I have to guess who would it be, let's say it would be one of the Ferrari boys. And that is why I think that they also would finish 1-2. And I don't know why, but this prediction is based on thin air, like on nothing. But at the same time, I feel like this season is going to be super interesting. We would see some chaos, some drama. And why not the redemption to be in the third round?
I can't wait. Let's see. I hope your prediction turns correct. And my first one is that Yuki Tsunoda will finally get points. It will be in a Red Bull. So let's see. And the second one is that Kimi Antonelli will be in the top 4. I have trust in the boy. He is really good. I mean, China was not his a strong weekend, but I think he'll turn things around.
Yeah, just one note on Antonelli. This is his last race. If he wins, he beats Max Verstappen's record, just to keep that in mind. I don't think he will, but the fact that he even has the chance to do that, it would be crazy if he did that, but still top 4 would be a great result. My predictions: Carlos Sainz beating Alex Albon, even though I never thought that this would ever be a bold prediction. Alex Albon has 16 out of Williams' 17 points and has outqualified Carlos Sainz in every session so far, so Carlos needs to step it up, and I think he will. Also, my other prediction, Racing Bulls double points. Finally, everything will click, and I think they will get double points. Their car looks really good, and Tsunoda and Hadjar both are driving really well as well, so I'm actually confident in their abilities for this weekend.
I'm waiting for the day that David would predict Red Bull 1-2. Then we would have a draw in this. But let's see, if I get the Ferrari 1 correct, I would look like genius. So
if you want, I'll predict the Red Bull 120 next race. How about that?
this is so not interesting. Like
It's not bold, yeah.
Liam Lawson getting P20 consecutive qualifying sessions, and you're like, damn, would he get P20? Of course he would get it. This is Liam Lawson, as the meme started wandering around the internet. But I think we can conclude here. This is all for today from us, guys. We're looking forward to the next episode. Till then, like, subscribe, and follow us in AUBG Daily on Instagram and Facebook, and stay tuned for more of our content. Thank you, and remember,
If you no longer go for a gap that exists,
You're no longer a racing driver.